Tonight, Senator Bernie Sanders takes what he calls his fighting oligarchy tour to the ruby red state of Idaho after drawing a huge crowd over the weekend in California. 36,000 people turned out to see Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in Los Angeles. Then, hey, hear the cheers. The 83-year-old Sanders made a surprise appearance at Coachella, where the reception was raucous.
The future of what happens to America is dependent upon your generation. Now, you can turn away and you can ignore what goes on, but if you do that, you do it at your own peril. We need you to stand up to fight for justice.
As one editor of the Cook Political Report told the Washington Post, Sanders is filling a power vacuum in the Democratic Party because the Vermont senator has always had a strong identity at a time when many voters feel the party has lost its own. Joining me here, Basil Smikle, former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party and an MSNBC political analyst. Megan Hayes served as director of message planning in the Biden White House. Let me just take a big picture look at this, first of all, Basil, which is Bernie Sanders is saying exactly the same thing that he has been saying, frankly, not for years, for decades. Yes, it's true. Almost like what he warned about has come to be. And although he has had his moments, including a run against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination before, this feels like something that maybe might stick or no?
No, I do think it'll stick for a couple of reasons. One, because he's been saying it a long time, so consistency, as you know, is incredibly important, number one. Number two, I do think while there's an interest in disruptive politics on the right and the left, I think on the left we're also seeing a need for an intergenerational change in politics, which is why a lot of these rallies he's had AOC with him as well, because these are issues that resonate. Two other quick things. One, you can't just spend a lot of time talking about all the bad things Donald Trump does. You've got to actually build a world that voters want to live in and say that this is the world that Democrats can build for.
Aspirational.
Absolutely aspirational. And I also think that one of the things that hasn't been as great over the last few years, I think the party has receded from organized labor in many ways, working class voters. And I think what Sanders is doing is reconnecting the party, reframing the coalition so that it does have more of an economic populist message.
So Idaho tonight, Megan, for Bernie Sanders, getting huge crowds, frankly, isn't anything new. I was on his on the campaign trail with him. But what does he hope to accomplish by going to Idaho? I mean, it isn't just a red state. It is deeply, profoundly red.
There are Democrats in every state, and all those people need to have someone to listen to. And Bernie Sanders is out there, and he is talking, which is more than a lot of the Democrats.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like a governor or a senator is going to be elected who's a Democrat from that state, nor is it going to suddenly turn and vote for a Democrat in the presidential.
Absolutely, but we're sitting here talking about it. Other networks are also talking about it. That means people across the Midwest and other parts that they might not be going to are hearing that he's willing to go out there and talk to people who may not necessarily believe 100% in our message. And that's an honorable thing to do, especially when the Democrats in Congress, besides him and a few others, aren't saying a whole lot. So it's giving people something to latch onto right now as we're heading into the midterms and people are deciding if they're going to run for Senate or whether they're going to be primary in the House. We have an important election coming up as Democrats. We can really take back the House, but we need to be active and we need to be doing something. So I give him a lot of credit for being out there, at least engaging with people.
Well, the Idaho Statesman, I was reading it this morning, Basil, the local police chief told the newspaper they think they could get 10 to 12,000 people. That is not insignificant. The population is not huge there. But that leads me to Ocasio-Cortez, right? Because there's a lot of questions about her future, including a potential run against Chuck Schumer. What do you make of her being with Bernie Sanders right now?
Well, I think there are a lot of theories of action in terms of how Democrats should move forward. Personally, I've not thought that it should come from D.C. in the sense that it shouldn't be hierarchical and top-down in that way. It should come from the ground up. And if you look at her trajectory, what did she do? She beat an incumbent who is the leader of the party both in New York and a leader nationally. and try to usher in that next generation of leadership. And if you hear her talk, she talks about the voter in her district that voted for her and Donald Trump. If you're going to have someone who's a Democrat that has the ability to talk to that voter, then I do think she's got a great future. I don't know that she's going to run against Chuck Schumer. She might run statewide office in New York at some point. But right now, she has the ability to be a good messenger, to deliver a message for the future for the party.
And it's also showing that there's a younger side of the Democratic Party than just 80-year-old men. And I think that's really important.
83 years old, I mean, at a time when, frankly, a lot of folks that I talked to on the campaign trail in October, November were saying to me, it's time to turn the page.
Absolutely.
They certainly are listening to an 83-year-old pretty closely. But the Washington Post notes, Megyn, that some of the Democratic party are looking at this warily, trying to determine whether he, meaning Bernie, will limit his recruiting efforts to safe red or blue districts and local offices, or whether he could build a machine backing independent candidates in more competitive districts, potentially setting up a collision course with the Democratic Party establishment. Do you see that?
Absolutely. But if they're so worried about it, then let's go do something about it. Then get off your butt and go do something, because he's out there at least doing something, and that's admirable.
What are they not doing that they need to do?
We are not in a cohesive message. We are not talking to the middle class. I don't think that Bernie should be at Coachella talking to people who pay $600+ to go to something like that. But at least he's out there, and at least he's engaging with activists. I just think we need to be talking to the middle class. We need to be back to where our roots are, to the working class, to the unions, to those types of folks. And until we get there, we are not going to win elections.
Basil, Megyn, thank you. This is just the start of this conversation.